All right, let's talk about something. Have you ever been staring at a wall of bottles, looked at a whiskey, then looked at a brandy, and just thought, what's actually the difference here? I mean, they're both brown, they're both aged, but trust me, their stories could not be more different. So let's dive in and get this sorted out. It really all boils down to one single question. What was it before it became a spirit? Before it ever saw the inside of a barrel? In this explainer, that's exactly what we're going to break down. We're going to make the line between these two classics perfectly clear. Okay, so to really get whiskey, we've got to go all the way back to the beginning, back to the source. And for whiskey, that means starting in a field. It all starts with grain. And here it is, plain and simple. No matter where in the world it's made, no matter what you call it, every single whiskey starts its life right here, as a fermented mash of grain. That is the fundamental, non-negotiable rule. And when we say grain, we're usually talking about one of these four. These are the heavy hitters: barley, corn, rye, and wheat. The choice of which one to use is like the first major fork in the road for a whiskey's flavor. Corn brings that classic sweetness, which is why it's the heart of bourbon, while barley gives you more of a malty, earthy backbone. So, now that we know it all starts with grain, let's take a quick trip around the globe. You'll see how that one simple ingredient can be spun into totally different styles of whiskey. And where else could we possibly start but Scotland, right? The home of Scotch whiskey. And hey, pay attention to the spelling there. No E in Scotch whiskey. It matters. Scotch is famous for being, well, bold. It's got this character that feels like it comes right out of the Scottish landscape. And that iconic, smoky, peaty flavor, that comes from a really unique tradition. They dry the malted barley over these smoky fires fueled by peat. Seriously, if you take away one thing about Scotch, let it be this. That distinct, earthy, almost medicinal flavor of smoke and peat, that's its signature. That's its calling card. Okay, let's just hop across the Irish Sea to Ireland. We find a different take on whiskey. And yep, they put the E back in the name here. So what's the big deal with Irish whiskey? Well, for most of them, it all comes down to the number 3. They typically distill the spirit 3 times, not just 2. And that extra step creates a whiskey that is famously exceptionally smooth. And that's really the whole game. That third distillation is all about stripping away the heavier elements to get this incredibly smooth, easy drinking character. It's as much about the feel as it is about the flavor. And for the final stop on our whirlwind tour, we are landing in the good old US of A, home to legendary styles like bourbon and rye. Now, American whiskey, and bourbon in particular, gets its trademark sweetness from 2 key things. First, it's gotta be made from mostly corn. And second, there's a super specific rule about how it's aged. And that aging rule, that is the real game changer. The magic word here is new. See, unlike Scotch, which often reuses old barrels, American whiskey has to be aged in brand spanking new, heavily charred oak barrels. All those delicious sweet notes of vanilla and caramel, they're pulled right out of that fresh wood. Okay, we've hammered it home. Whiskey comes from grain. Got it. Now, I want you to take all that and just put it aside for a second. Let's switch gears completely and talk about a spirit that's born in a vineyard, not a green field. Let's talk about brandy. I mean, just looking at it, it has a different vibe, doesn't it? It kind of hints that it has a completely different backstory. And here is that story. This is the big reveal. If whiskey is, at its heart, basically distilled beer, then brandy is distilled wine. Simple as that. It's a spirit that starts its life as grapes. And here's the official definition to prove it. Brandy is what you get when you take wine, or sometimes other fermented fruits, and you distill it down, concentrating all those flavors. The starting point is always fruit, never grain. So there we have it, our 2 contenders, each from a completely different side of the farm, you could say. So let's put them side by side one last time for the final, crystal clear comparison. So let's wrap this all up. Whiskey starts with grain, right? And that gives it flavors that run from smoky and oaky all the way to those big vanilla and caramel notes. Brandy, on the other hand, starts with fruit, grapes, which naturally leads to flavors that are more fruity, more floral, more delicately sweet. It's really a tale of 2 different harvests. So the next time you're choosing a drink, you'll know exactly what kind of story you're about to pour. Is it a story that began in a field of barley, or one that started in a vineyard soaking up the sun? Smoky, smooth, or sweet? The choice is yours.